unicorn kele ezizizini bawandiyabanga ngaba usandikwinile tinatenda baba ninatenda nekuti munondicheleta tinatenda baba ninatenda nekuti munondicheleta.
Ryan Coogler has yet again held a mirror up to us as humans and helped remind us why culture is so important. This time, utilizing aspects of his movie Sinners as the ultimate form of kintsugi. Now some of you may be scratching your head wondering what I'm talking about, and some of you may be wondering what a Japanese pottery repair technique has to do with the horror movie Sinners. Trust me, it will all make sense by the end of this video, but to actually address this question, I have to ask you another. What makes a good story? While that answer is up for debate, I'd argue something we can all sort of agree upon is decent characters. But what makes an intriguing and decent character in the first place? We already know it's not someone who's naturally good at everything and never faces any real hardships. That's been blatantly proven. No, it's characters with flaws. See, over the last several years, we found that audiences are more likely to take home multi-dimensional characters as their favorite. Whether it be Thanos, whether it be Walter White, or whether it be Deadpool, having a character with layers is always someone people attach themselves to. And interestingly enough, that's arguably every single character within the movie Sinners. See, the sins of different characters and people's journeys help remind us that nobody's perfect, that we can do better, and that at the end of the day, we are all still human. And when you don't really have much terminology to really explain that, what makes a human human, there's only so many other outlets you can work with to convey who you are. Sure, that can be through words or even actions, but one of the most common ways to convey a different perspective is through storytelling. See, a good actor, a solid narrative, and a seamless production can really help convey the different aspects of the human spirit. See, it's so hard to really put into words what makes a human human without the expression of their spirit. And back when humanity was mostly just surviving off instinct and gathering around the bonfires, we'd share these different perspectives through bestowing wisdom, through conversation. And this vital use of wisdom eventually evolved into storytelling. Storytelling, I would say, is another method best used to help explain and express your human spirit and individuality as a whole. And while there are many other pieces that can form this sort of bowl that holds your human spirit, you still need a tether to be able to connect and unify all these different pieces to hold this expression of human spirit. And what better way to mend pieces of a bowl than with kintsugi? And if in this analogy, all these different pieces of the bowl are experiences, cultures, and aspects of each individual, then I would say that kintsugi is the ultimate representation of music. Through the human species' implementation of sound within their stories, we were able to find new methods to express our own unique individuality, vibe, and wavelength. Even being able to do so through something as seemingly insignificant as a hum. With these new ways to express our stories, we have yet again evolved the idea of forming around a circle and bestowing wisdom upon each other from storytelling to something beyond just a verbal or visual medium. And interestingly enough, if music does help express what's in our minds and tap into what makes us us, then it begs the question about the mystery of what truly does make us us. See, the concept of what makes you you at the end of the day is argued between both spiritualism and scientific explanation. And if you work with me for a second and open your mind to the idea that what makes us us and really builds our own unique individuality is something mystical or spiritual, then you could argue that the most magical thing in this world that is tangible and we can utilize is music. But simply being able to utilize music to tap into your soul and express what's going on with you deeper as a person isn't the only thing that makes music magical. I'd argue one of the other biggest aspects that makes music so magical is its ability to unify. See, it's not enough to be able to express and convey what's going on with inside your own mind and spirit. It's even more for people to be able to take that expression and be able to come to a fuller understanding of who you are as a person. Whether it be through the sounds, the emotions, or the stories conveyed within each song, each person is able to simultaneously take a different aspect and a similar aspect from music altogether. See, when it comes to art, we can always argue and debate on what an artist is actually trying to convey within their work. But what's interesting about music as an art form as opposed to others is that usually people are much more likely to come together in agreeing about the feelings this same piece had conveyed. Take artists like Frank Ocean and Kendrick Lamar for example. Sure, some of their lines or lyrics might be a little on the nose, but for the most part, it's up for interpretation how you actually take the subject matter they're actually portraying. But that doesn't mean we don't all get bummed out at a Frank Ocean song or get hyped up at a Kendrick song. To have such a universal or creative piece of art, be able to simultaneously tap into one's individuality while also tapping into one's primal instinct to congregate and unify is just something really magical to see, and something that's also very easy to gloss over. Which is why when movies and stories come out like Sinners that are able to remind us why cultures and coming together is so important, we need to be able to pay our respects and show some appreciation for what these stories are actually accomplishing. See, in the past, when all we had was sitting around a fire, stories were best utilized to explain histories of a culture, to explain the dangers of an outside world, or to explain methods of surviving in such dangerous circumstances. Over time, the importance of this storytelling has been diluted. Thankfully, there's one particular scene in the movie Sinners that truly did remind me of how important music and culture is to us as a species. And that, of course, is Sammy's Juke Jam scene. See, throughout the story, we see that 1930s Kendrick over here is a pretty shy and recluse guy. He usually keeps to himself and is a little bit reserved, but you can tell he's a lot of respect to give and a lot of passion behind him. Throughout the story, we see there's a divide in how he's struggling to find himself. But interestingly enough, one of the biggest ways that we see Sammy does express what he's thinking and how he's feeling, and when he's most passionate throughout the entire film, is when he's actually performing for others. Whether it be through acts of respect and admiration, through acts of love, or through the act of performing in front of an audience altogether. We see that Sammy's at his truest version of himself when he's able to sing and play that guitar. But let's touch more into the brilliance of this sequence as a whole. This sequence arguably made the entire movie for me, and while the movie by itself is genuinely entertaining and a solid story all the way through, I think that this sequence will go down as a very important piece of cinematic history. See, Ryan Coogler and Ludwig Göransson were able to tap into the sounds of multiple generations. But it wasn't just the sounds, it was the cinematography, the aesthetics, and costume design of different generations and time periods throughout our species. To see and hear all these different time periods played amongst each other and dancing together really did remind me that at the end of the day, no matter what our religious differences, no matter what our political beliefs, no matter what petty and insignificant reasons we continue to find to mistreat and abuse each other, at the end of the day, we can at least find unification in sound. Because let's be honest, sound is soul. From the juxtaposition to the unification going on inside the Juke Jam to the actual dance circle Remick had going outside of the bar, I thought it was really cool to see people coming together. Whether that be for malicious or happy reasons is besides the point. The idea that sound is soul is an aspect that is heavily hinted out through the movie, in the idea that each character has some sort of cultural history that comes into play, characters who turn their own personal experience into sound, like Delta Slim when he went through the blues sequence inside the movie, which I gotta say is one of the most beautiful illustrations of why blues was made in the first place. Or even in the opening dialogue of the movie, where we get an explanation of how the sound of music can draw in spirits and ancestors, some good and some bad. Which ties me into my final point here, Remick. Remick was a very cool villain to watch, and you could see that he wasn't truly that malicious. He was definitely evil and lacking a soul, but you could also see him as yet another victim of the same thing that infected everybody else at the Juke Jam that night. But it is also very possible that he's the very start of some of this evil, having had the Native Americans hunting him throughout the story. An interesting tweet I found about his character goes as follows. Chris Aneva says, realizing Remick wanted Sammy's gift because he craved the opportunity to be in touch with his ancestors. Remick was Irish and probably lived through Ireland's colonization by the British. Which is interesting because his Irish culture is alluded to several times throughout the movie, even during a pinnacle moment in him quoting the Bible back at Sammy. All I can say is, as an Irish black man who loves storytelling and music, Ryan Coogler, you've done it again. And this movie has gone up there to tie with my #1 spot for movies of all time. its only other contender being the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. And if you guys ever want to see a video on that, feel free to let me know down below. Or if you're interested in watching things like Severance, Yellow Jackets, or The Last of Us, feel free to check out the rest of the channel. And if you have any other films or TV shows you'd want to see covered, feel free to also let me know. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for your support, thank you so much for watching, and remember, sound is soul.